Bella Vista Designs is Southern California's premier audio and visual company, specializing in decorative lighting, draping, and sound for your upcoming wedding or event. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Fun Sparkle Drama. I am your host, Nico Cervantes, and this is my amazing, gorgeous, fabulous, blue-eyed diva, Nita LaFuente, as my co-host.
Hi, thank you.
Hey, girl.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
Good.
Yeah, you always give me the best introduction, so like, how can I not smile?
Well, you are. You're like my best. You're my bae.
Thank you.
Now that we figured out what bae means, because we're old.
Yeah. We're like the last people on the planet.
Definitely.
BAE. What does it stand for, though? We're not going there.
We're not going there.
I can't even go in there.
So I had a little bit of a stressful day. I was running around doing errands, and I was at the Trader Joe's parking lot, which is like the Goleta one, which is my worst favorite parking lot
They're
ever.
all kind of complicated, though.
Yeah, my worst
Trader
favorite.
Joe's.
You like that? They're all complicated. And I go to park in. I'm already stressed out. I'm coming in, and I go, and I feel like I'm a pretty good. Like, I'm a considerate driver. I'm a fast driver, but I'm considerate. Anyway, so I'm pulling in, and this lady's getting out of her car, and she gets out of her car, and she looks at me, and as I'm pulling in, she's like this.
Are you sure it was you? She was looking at you.
No, it was me. And she was like 95 years old. I love old people, by the way, so don't criticize me for that. But she was 95 years old, and she was just like snarling at me like I was doing a bad job parking. And I felt really offended. And it was just like, really, lady? Why don't you go judge someone else? I don't know. It was one of my pet peeves when people... It doesn't matter if they're old or young or whatever, and when they like give you an attitude for your driving or your parking.
Right.
Like, I just feel like it's really rude.
Right.
And it's like, okay to give people a little honk or a little like like maybe you were rude, maybe you were this, like a little gesture, but to like give someone a bad look or flick them off, is the worst.
Were you on your phone?
No,
okay,
I was like, it was the Trader Joe's
asking.
parking lot. Oh my God, I'm so afraid of always getting an offender bender there.
I know.
So I'm like very cautious, and she was just like, and then she went like, this is the worst part. This is the worst part, Nina. She goes, and like walks off. It like really put a damper on my day.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too.
What do we do?
Well, that's okay. So that's your pet peeve.
Yeah.
When you're like parking lot, when people make comments who don't even know you about your, because you don't know. Like maybe somebody's dog just died and they're kind of.
Girl, don't even.
No,
you love to make excuses for people.
No, I'm not. I'm saying like one shouldn't do that about someone's driving because you don't know what's going on for the person who's driving. Like maybe. Yeah. The dog had just died, and the person who was driving is kind of out of it, and you can be like, "Oh my God, that person's driving horribly."
Get over it. I didn't kill your dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was like this. I was totally pulling in, like, when you do, like it was all that. It was not anyway. So that's one of my pet peeves, and then it got me thinking to like my other pet peeves.
Okay, let's go.
But I'm gonna let you take the floor because you've got some good ones. Because you're an awesome person. Like you always think about other people. So I want to hear kind of your pet peeves.
Okay. All right. One pet peeve is when people don't hold the door open for you. When you're like going into like a restaurant or a door. What does it take to just hold the door open and even look to see if like someone's coming? And I feel like that might be either a generational or like a West Coast thing. Because I feel on the East Coast that just does not happen at all.
No, and it doesn't happen in the South, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, so that's a very conscious thing. And then, and I remember when like my son was a baby and I'd have this big stroller trying to like get through a door and people wouldn't hold the door. So that's a pet peeve.
Oh, that's gross.
A personal pet peeve, which I totally own, is when people call me ma'am. And that's them being polite, and it makes me feel like I'm like 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
So
what is that about? Like, why do women not like to be called ma'am?
Well, okay, back to like geographical references. Like in the South or on other parts of the country, you say ma'am as it's a respect.
Yeah.
Like thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Yeah.
But we're not in the South here.
Yeah. And I do not look like a ma'am.
And it's like, when someone calls me ma'am, I'm like, well, I just missed the miss cutoff, Like, it's like, I'm not a miss anymore. And, I'm not. I mean, I know that. But at the same time, that's like, that always gets me for some reason.
Another one that gets me is at the grocery store when you're in the 12 items or less line and someone clearly has more than 12 items.
Does that bother you? Like how much more? Like 15,
okay,
20?
So I'm not one to count. I really
am. Oh, you have sat there and counted.
I totally have. But usually it's like when people are like they have all their, it's like a pile of stuff, and it's
Right.
obvious it's over 12
Right.
items, 12 pounds.
Right.
And so whenever I'm there and I'm like, I have some larger items that could look more than 12
Right.
items, I always try to like separate them so people
Right.
know it was only 12
Right.
items. But it really irritates me. And finally I said something to someone.
And
I did. It didn't go over so well.
yeah. Yeah.
Let me tell you.
I know people don't want to be called out at the grocery
You
store.
know, and I'm not a stranger to being crazy.
Yeah.
Like I have a little cray in me, everyone. But I called this woman out and I said, excuse me, ma'am. I said ma'am too.
Oh my goodness.
But she wasn't fazed by that part. But I said, listen, ma'am, I believe that you have more than 12 items. And this is the 12 items or less than. I don't know if you noticed. Like I was trying to like go about
Right.
it. But you know me, when I say things, my delivery is a little like
Yeah.
askewed.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she looked at me and she was like, she gave me this look like, really?
Oh.
Like, and it was just like, she didn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
But she hated me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like that little old lady who was giving me like stink eye as I was driving in, like I think I'm that person to that other person. Isn't that funny? So anyway, but it bothers me. And I don't know why it bothers me. I just feel like it's really like, it's a lack of respect for everyone
I
else
know.
who's in a hurry or a single man who doesn't have very many groceries.
Right. But
Yeah.
they're our pet peeves. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's like it usually like comes back like, okay, what about that really bothers me? And like,
Yeah.
you know, so I was saying like the ma'am thing, like that,
Yeah.
because that makes me feel old. Because you know what? I'm closer to 50 than I am 30. Let's
Yeah.
just be real. And what's the other? And the holding the door, I just feel like that's common sense. Like
Yeah.
why? Or I think that thing that really bothers me is like people get so in their own zone that we're not paying attention to the people around us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then that makes me feel like, God, are people so into their head that they can't even like open the blinders and hold a door?
You know what I love? We haven't traveled a ton together because you can't handle driving with me, or driving with me. You can't handle traveling with me because I'm a disaster to travel with. And you're really awesome you're an awesome traveler. But what you did is we stayed in a hotel room together, and as we left, like you like cleaned the hotel room before we checked out. And with me, I'm just like, oh, there's cleaning ladies do that. Like, why do I have to do that? I'm not cleaning up my shit. And you are really good about that. Like, you're so considerate. And that stuck in my head. It's been 3 or 4 years since we've gone on a trip together.
Yeah,
but that really affected me. Like, you really, and that's what it is.
Well, I didn't clean, but I just didn't leave it a disaster.
Like, you like practically made the bed.
Oh,
but it was really nice because you were considerate of the person that was coming in, but you were good. You also like are one of those people that also put away their grocery carts. You know? Like,
yeah.
You're
God,
awesome.
I sound like a total goody two shoe.
I'm really excited about our next guest. Sorry.
Oh, I
interrupt
know,
you.
Alan.
I know. Mr. Alan Rose is here. He is our weatherman and meteorologist. Sorry, I say weatherman, Alan, wherever you are. And because I think it sounds cuter because he's adorable and amazing. And we
local
have him
celeb.
on the show. He's a total local celebrity. And so I want to bring him on.
Yes, I can't wait to see him.
So, but we're going to bring him on right after this break. So when we come back, it's going to be Mr. Alan Rose. Bella Vista Designs is Southern California's premier audio and visual company, specializing in decorative lighting, draping, and sound for your upcoming wedding or event.
Got some mixed weather conditions out there tonight. We have one reporter out there who's soaking wet and another who's nice and dry. So.
Dry, yeah, and you know where the rain is falling, it's a little bit cooler, but it's not really a cold system, and it's a system that's really going to fall apart, almost like hitting a wall of dry air. And when that happens, all the rainfall evaporates before it hits ground, pretty much disappears. Live storm tracker radar, we can show you where the rain is falling right now, and you see it's dry throughout Santa Barbara County. Still, though, some heavier showers continuing to move across northern parts of San Luis Obispo, mostly north of the city. And to the south, you can see the front starting to become a little less defined or more ragged, if you will, as it encounters some of that drier air. We're actually going to see a little bit of a dry phase. It's been an active start to December. And I got to tell you, the extended models, not only the storm late next week, potentially another one about 3-4 days later.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it looks like we're settling into this Pineapple Express pattern. Some wet weather still heading our way.
Thank you, everyone. Mr. Alan Rose is here. Look at how cute you look in that clip. You are so adorable.
Thanks, Nico. I appreciate it. You look great. You're always very flattering with the comments. I think Nina's right. And
I know.
You look amazing. I like the brooch.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Very nice.
So, I'm so glad you're here, by the way. Thank you for coming on.
Of course. I'm happy to be
here.
I
I think definitely our local news just got a whole lot sparklier with you on it. Like, seriously, I'm really glad you came to town and and saved us. And
you.
you're just so adorable. So how did you get into broadcasting? Like, I mean, how does one get into broadcasting?
You know, it's pretty funny. I think my story is so similar to everyone else out there who's probably working as a journalist or a meteorologist. And, you know, when I was a young kid, when I was like 8 years old, no joke, I loved the weather. I just have always been fascinated by the weather. And my uncle on my mom's side is actually a meteorologist at the National Hurricane Center.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the weather geek side of it. But no joke, Paul Lopez still calls me a weather geek or a weather nerd because I do get excited when weather happens, as one in my field would naturally do.
Yeah.
And I just remember being in Georgia and we had a tornado warning one time and I was beyond excited. And I mean, I don't think anybody who's not interested in weather would totally understand that. Most people wouldn't run for the hills. But I moved to Florida when I was in 5th grade and lived with my dad, and the grocery stores would hand out these hurricane tracking guides. And we would put them on the refrigerator and I would watch the Weather Channel all day long and I would plot the hurricane across the ocean. And I would sort of hope that it would come near us so I could experience it. So yeah, you know.
So you just kind of connected the pieces like later in life that you were always you always thought you could be a meteorologist, but then to actually be like broadcasting,
right?
Because that's two different things, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, most meteorologists is kind of like geeky.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like you're a handsome guy, you're like a personable guy. So like you really put those two pieces together, right?
Yeah, I don't have the pocket protector. In fact, I don't even have the pocket on the shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you know, there's different sides of meteorology as well. You can be sort of an operational meteorologist. And those are the guys that are working at the National Hurricane Center, the National Weather Service. They're really the number crunching guys.
Yeah.
They're getting down and dirty, rolling up their sleeves and really like analyzing algorithms, et cetera, putting together these models.
I'm like,
not for me.
Getting a total headache. So do you collaborate with those two, with that person? And
I
then
do.
you like
I do. So in
so you're
grad
just the pretty face?
and just the pretty face. But no, I have a degree in atmospheric sciences, and I have credentials since then. And you know, in grad school, we really learned how to not put together what they do, but to analyze and basically figure out how to put together a forecast for television.
Yeah, totally. Well, also, I think I didn't really know this about you, but you were on scholarship in college. You were a diver, right? On the diving team.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Tell me, do we have a photo of that? Oh, look at how cute you are. You were so
gosh.
adorable. So tell me about that part of your life, because athletes, meteorology. I'm not saying it. Tell me.
You wouldn't think they'd go together.
Yeah.
I was always athletic as a kid. I was always like the super skinny kid and just always involved with athletics. And when I was 6 years old, I started gymnastics. I did that till I was 10. And I excelled. I was pretty good. But when I moved to Florida, I kind of got away from it. And I sort of dabbled in some team sports. The baseball story, which maybe I'll share in a moment, is pretty funny, but baseball, not my forte. Yeah. When I was in 9th grade, the next door neighbor, who was also a gymnast, she had said, "Hey, I'm on the diving team at the high school. You should try it." And I was like, why not?
Yeah.
So I went out, and it was high school. It was just a 1 meter springboard that's like 3 feet off the water.
You gotta like tell me about all these kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like just that low level springboard. It's not even in the Olympics. It's done competitively in high school and on club team. And I tried out, and it was funny. I remember like my first meet, like I thought I was awesome because I hadn't seen anybody. You'd watch the Olympics, but I like would do a front 1.5. And I thought it was great, and I'd like come out of the water, and they'd be like 3, 4, 3.5.
Oh,
like really? And then I eventually started diving.
They were reading you back then.
Yeah, definitely. And then I eventually started diving with the club team, Team Orlando. I was in Orlando, Florida, and this team was a nationally recognized program. These kids were like junior national champions and would travel the world and would compete in the Olympics and Olympic trials. And when I walked in the first day there and saw the high platform and the high springboard.
Oh, no, honey.
No. What I've got is not quite.
Yeah.
But you know, I trained, and that first year I did it a couple days a week. And I lived with my dad and my brother. And my dad, a single parent, and he worked, and it was hard. It was 22 miles from my house. So it was hard to get out there. So we could only do it a couple days a week. And then eventually when I got my license, I got involved. And by my junior year, I was training every day. And, you know, it led to the partial scholarship in college and dove at the University of Alabama. Roll Tide.
Totally. So you know what like really fascinates me about broadcasters, and I can watch it just like I watch QVC, is like your voice. you guys all have this very specific voice.
Yeah.
That's like a little, well, tell me about this voice and how you do it. Because I would give you an example right now, but I can't, but I'm fascinated with it. It's the same thing with the QVC ladies. Like it's like,
true.
So tell me about the voice.
You know what's funny? I don't even know where it comes from, but people kind of joke about it and tease me, and I basically sum it up to anyone who's in a professional setting presenting.
Yeah.
You know, like when you're giving a presentation, or you know, anyone, if you're in a board meeting, you're talking professionally, I think you kind of put on that maybe that deeper tone, or you try to
Like
make
you mean
it
business.
Yeah, like you mean business, and I think that's where it comes from. And you know, the friends always joke, and they're like, "Oh, I do the weather," like when we're out in public or out at the bars, out and about in town, and I don't have a green screen. I can't do the weather, so it just kind of comes naturally, like when the camera's on, you know.
So you mentioned the bars, and so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
I love that you are openly gay, and you are somebody in the spotlight, and you are somebody out in the public eye, and I think it's really brave of you, I have to tell you.
Well, thank you.
To do that, and in like a semi-conservative town, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how has that like affected your career, being openly gay?
You know, I think it's funny for you to say semi-conservative town, only because, you know, think about my background. I've mentioned here that I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I lived in Orlando, Florida, but I went to college in Alabama and grad school in Mississippi. So I've seen ultra-conservative. And, you know, in college, I had a boyfriend who was my teammate.
Oh.
And all of our teammates knew, and by my senior year, all of our good friends knew, and it just was a non-issue. And, you know, that's kind of how it's always been treated with my family. Never had an issue coming out. And, you know, when I moved out here after Mississippi, which was a little more back in the closet, I just thought, you know what, it's not like I'm going to walk into a new job, if I were to start a new job, and bring the fun, sparkle drama. No.
No.
I'm just teasing.
No, we're all
But,
that.
you know,
That's what I'm getting
I
down
mean,
the gritty. I was like, it's nice to know all that kind of stuff, but let's
you know,
get down
I'm
to
not
it.
going to walk in with like the rainbow flag tied to my back.
Yeah.
I'm never going to hide who I am. And I think you're probably the same way. I think many of us who have kind of grown up and are in our age range, you're of course younger than me, as we know. But you know, people who are kind of in their 20s and 30s, it's different than people who are generations above us.
Yeah, I mean, I use Glee as a reference point, as a timeline for so much, because prior to Glee, having there be an openly out character in high school on television never happened.
Never.
And it humanized that whole process. And I think when I came out, I was in high school, and I was the only one.
Right.
And I was already the weirdo kid. So,
right.
You know, it was not cool. It was, even in Santa Barbara, it wasn't really accepted. People didn't know how to take me.
And that's crazy to me. And I think even like back in the days, like when we were young kids, if there was a gay character, it was all about that.
Yeah.
You know, your example, Glee, Kurt, the character, like he has real issues.
Yeah.
Like it's not just him being gay.
Yeah.
It's, you know, whatever he's gone through, this scandal, that scandal. And
I mean, it was so groundbreaking.
Yeah,
And
it really
I love
was.
that. And
It
I
really
love where
was.
we're at, like in our life. So tell me like about your coming out story, because we all have one.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear about it.
You know,
I
it's
love
funny,
hearing about people.
You know, mine, I feel like it was, it's never easy. I mean, we all know that. But you hear so many different stories and different versions from different people as we get older. And a lot of them are not as easy as mine. You know, I had a very loving family. My parents are fairly liberal and very understanding. And I remember in college when, you know, you start to figure things out a little bit. And the college boyfriend had told his roommate, who was one of our teammates, a swimmer. And I remember just that feeling, which I'm sure you had, like your heart literally just drops. And I was almost paralyzed. And I just thought, this changes everything.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. And I just didn't know how to act around these people, or how would they perceive me, or, you know, who would I become, or who I was. And I think that's just a growing up process. But I remember I told my brother first, and this is kind of a sob story.
No. It's
I can't
fun,
believe
sparkle,
I'm
drama, honey.
You're right.
So give me a little drama.
I got to bring the drama. So he was visiting me in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Yeah.
And we had come back. He came and watched the meet, and then we came back, and we were in my house, and we had gone out that night. So maybe we had had a few drinks. And I remember I told him, and I got emotional, as one would.
Yeah.
And I said, I just don't want you to not love me anymore, as I'm crying and sobbing.
God.
And he was kind of like, dude, no, we're okay, you know, like the bro thing.
Yeah.
But and I think he wasn't taken back. He's always known me, and he's always been like that best friend. But I think for him, it had to like settle in for a day, and then like by the morning when we woke up, and it was probably 2 a.m. at that point.
Yeah.
Just
It was done. It was
done.
It was done. It was like the way it is.
Yeah.
So how has it been being? Because I know you're taken now. Everyone should know that. Alan is off the market, unfortunately.
He wanted to make sure. Too.
Yeah. How to do that? How to fit that part in? But how was it like dating? Because I know when I met you, you came to town. You were single.
Yeah.
We met some Pride barbecue. I don't know if you remember.
I think so.
I think so. You've been here like a week, I want to say.
Yeah.
But all the gays had already had their paws on you, honey. Like they had pulled you in. They're like, and so you were already there, and we talked for a bit. But you were single at the time. So how has it been being single in the limelight, in the public eye, and dating and being on Grindr and things like that?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm not on Grindr.
Oh,
not on
sorry, everyone.
I do know what it is, but
I am.
Yeah, that you know that would be a little difficult. There's since I do work in the media, and in the public eye, like you said, there's clauses in the contract where we can't really, put ourselves out in a negative way. Not that that's negative, but if there were certain images you had put on that sort of website or forum, then
we all know what images we're talking about.
Yes, those images.
Yes.
I could get in trouble, lose the job. So I'm very careful, and I met my current guy out at a bar, and it wasn't like at night, late at night. We were watching football, which is kind of funny.
Oh, really? Like a
Football? Yeah. Well,
Butch boyfriend.
I was meeting the lesbians.
Oh yeah. I love me some lesbians.
Right, and they all love football. So
Yeah.
we were watching at Bay Roadhouse, down in the Funk Zone, and he was there with some friends, and he had on like this Iowa sweatshirt, and totally looks like a straight guy, which is kind of my thing and my type. And,
Totally.
And I'm sitting next to this girl, and she comes up to me, and I know her, and she said, "Hey, somebody here that's interested in you," and it was like all lesbians and like one dude and like a ton of couples, and I was like, "Who?" It's like the guy in the Iowa sweatshirt. Oh, okay. Then he came over and
that
was
was
very gentleman and asked me out and took me to dinner. It's been about a year, so.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been very good.
Can we give him a round of applause for that? Because
Yes.
if you're gay and single and in your 30s, like you deserve a round of applause.
Yeah.
Well,
but
good.
yeah, I mean, dating is, here. You've been here a while too. It can be pretty tough, and I think it's tough. Gay, straight, bi, yellow, orange, whatever, anything. I mean, it's a small town. I think it's kind of difficult, and I think the longer you're here, the longer you planted those roots, the more people you know. And,
Definitely.
And you know a lot of people as well. I know that.
Yeah, no, I've been here my whole life, so I do know a lot of people. But it's funny, the last like 3 people I have dated have all been in LA. None of them have been in Santa Barbara. And I didn't realize that because I've been traveling back and forth so much but it was like true. I was like, God, it's been a while since I've dated someone in Santa Barbara. So it's kind of it is.
And I was kind of doing that same thing too. I was kind of dabbling in LA, but then it gets a little exhausting. But here you kind of know everyone, so.
I know. So, and everyone knows everyone, and perhaps like the dating thing is like, it turns into almost like a centipede of like who dated who, and I dated that person. Like I literally was in a relationship with someone, and I dated both his ex-boyfriends. Oh gosh. So that's it. So
fun, sparkle, drama.
Right, totally. Fun, sparkle, drama. So tell me a little bit about like what is in store for you in the future. Like, do you plan on staying in Santa Barbara? What do you want to do?
I mean, ideally, I love Santa Barbara. How can you not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've grown up here. You're very lucky.
It's a trap. Beautiful trap.
It is. It really is. And what's funny is, growing up in the Southeast, as I mentioned, I had never been to California until I moved here. Actually, I take that back. The year before, I was dating someone when I moved out here. Okay. And he and I, I visited him and his family a few times. But before that, like I was 23, I'd never been here. I'd flown through on the way to Oregon to visit family. I I've fallen in love with it.
Yeah.
It's a great place. And I've really...
The tornado boy.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
Here, like...
Yeah, and I mean, I've really kind of developed a super solid base of friends, and now I'm in a relationship. So for me, there's no rush to leave. I always say, like, professionally, if there's a great opportunity that comes along, I think like anyone else, you're going to consider an opportunity. If it's maybe better pay or it's a chance to maybe live in San Francisco, which I've kind of always thought about.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I would definitely consider it, but I'm not really looking, and it's got to be something that is definitely greater than what I have here, and that's tough to beat.
And you're amazing. Like, people love you here. So again, before we leave, I know we might be running out of time a little bit. I do want to talk about this drought, girl, because it is it's literally raining on my parade, but it's not. Oh. It's like so dry. Yeah. And me, I'm like an aesthetics person. All the fountains are planted with plants. Like, it's not doing anything for me.
No.
What is happening? Like, are we going to get more rain?
January is not looking good. It's not looking good. December was nice. We're actually above average rainfall, and the rainy season, for some odd reason out here, the water year rainy season runs from July 1 of one year to June 30th the next year because they don't want to break up the wet winter months and do it on a calendar year.
Yeah.
So if I'm basing our new water year, which began July 1, we're actually above average for the first time in like 4 years. But it's only because December we had like 2 or 3 major storms.
Yeah.
You know, January there's a chance we could see a little something maybe towards the middle of the month. Looking out towards later in the month, it still looks pretty dry. There's sort of a blocking pattern that's built up.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, great.
I know.
Like, way to end the show.
Well, hopefully February, March, you know, those are the wetter months. And
yeah, I'm hoping. I'm like, you know, because it's funny, the drought really didn't really start. We had a drought when I was a kid, but because I grew up here.
Yeah.
In high school, I remember we had flash floods. There was, I don't know if you remember this or anyone, if you wouldn't have remembered it, but if someone would have shown you, there was a picture of, and it's an iconic picture of somebody canoeing down State Street. Have you seen this?
I didn't see that one, no.
No one showed you this?
No.
I have to.
But I've seen
look
the
it up.
kid
Google.
diving off the Cabrillo, one of the overpasses into the water. And
yeah,
it was,
that was the time.
Okay, that had to be insane.
In between those, he was dodging the canoers. People were kayaking and canoeing down State Street. It was insane.
Crazy.
And
crazy.
You know, people like in the Midwest, they closed school because of the snow.
Yeah.
We closed school for a week because of the flood.
Really?
So this whole drought for me, I'm not feeling it. I don't understand. It's not good for my skin. I'm not having it.
None of us enjoy it. And I mean, it's tough for, you know, recreation activities. You know, I'm a big skier in the Sierra, just so dry and, you know, of course, building up the reservoir. So not good. I hear you, definitely.
So what is also, I want to talk a little bit about, like, your life is, like, do you plan on getting married one day? Do you believe in marriage?
Yeah.
You know, do you want kids?
Well, I think it's exciting to announce that my home state, Florida, has become the 36th state.
Amazing.
To legalize.
Let's give
same-sex
that a round of
marriage.
applause.
Yes.
Slowly but surely we're creeping up.
Definitely. And I've seen a lot of stuff on social media about that. And, you know, I think as kids, we all fantasize about that.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't? You know, maybe it was with the different sex because we didn't quite understand who we were. But of course, I would love to get married someday.
You believe in marriage? Because a lot of gays don't, you know?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. And kids, you know, I think if the situation is right and I'm at a point in my life where, you know, things have maybe not slowed down, but financially it stabilizes. And maybe I own a home. And I know people say it's never the right time to have kids, right? But I kind of feel like at this point, it's not the right time for me yet, but I'm definitely not opposed to it.
But yeah, you're at that time. You're having fun. You're in your little thing.
Fun.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm in my 30s. I'm flirty and 30.
You're involved in a lot of nonprofits in town. And you're so involved. You keep yourself, you're almost like the perfect person to be the role that you are because you do so much. So tell me a little bit about what you do and everyone else too.
Yeah, you know, I've been working with Pacific Pride Foundation.
Awesome.
And you know, for those that don't know, they're the #1 resource for the LGBTQ community in Santa Barbara County, and they also provide resources to those living with affected by HIV/AIDS in Santa Barbara County. So they do a lot of great work, and they're an advocate for the community. And I mean, you've been involved with them. I've seen you out and about at all the events. We had talked about the barbecue, and I've emceed events. I've done PSAs for them. And I'm actually, this is sort of breaking news, I'm joining their board.
That's awesome.
So that's like the newest thing. And I've been on their event committee for the Royal Ball. And then the other agency, or I should say organization, near and dear to my heart is the Dream Foundation.
Yeah.
And they're very much like, you know, people have heard of them. They're based in Santa Barbara, but it's a national organization. And they basically do what Make-A-Wish does for kids for adults. So they grant like that last living wish.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot with them. I've been on committees, and they have another program called Flower and Power where we deliver flowers to those living, you know, with, again, a disease or maybe going through a tough time in their life. And we deliver flowers to them at their homes or hospice centers and cancer centers, a great group of people. So
yeah, you are amazing. You are so amazing, and you're so sweet, and you're such a good person, and I'm really glad that you were here. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Yeah. I adore you. And we are going to conclude. So thank you, everyone. Let's give Alan Rose a big round of applause. Sorry.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Alan, for being here.
Yes, thank you so much.
And for all of you, I really appreciate you tuning in and lasting this long, not turning me off. I am Nico Cervantes, and this is Fun Struggle Drama. I will see you next time.
That's awesome.